that bullshit. I be seeing you, Jimmy, talking about we Gucci boo boo. He in the Gucci store. Talking about we Gucci boo boo. Them Latin King was going fuck. Jimmy like, Marita Moneda.
50 Cent has never been one to stay silent when someone steps out of line, especially when it involves the legacy of a respected artist like Nas. Recently, Jim Jones made headlines by saying he was more influential than Nas and that he could run circles around him in the studio. That statement did not sit well with many in the hip-hop world, including 50 Cent. In fact, it sparked a brutal response from 50, who took the opportunity to drag Jim Jones for what he sees as years of disloyalty, flip-flopping, and chasing validation from the very people he used to diss. Jim's claim that he was more influential than Nas came out of nowhere, and immediately raised eyebrows. Nas is widely regarded as one of the greatest lyricists in hip-hop history. From his classic debut album Illmatic to his recent critically acclaimed projects, Nas has consistently stayed true to his roots and elevated the culture.
Sounds like he wanted to do one with 50 Cent. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like Jim.
Nah, I don't want to do nothing with that sucker. You heard? Leave him out of the conversation.
Jim Jones, who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's like no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family.
When Jay did the remix, it was the biggest alley-oop he could do for me. I understood a lot about music, and at that time, people were looking at the wrong way, and I was looking at the right way.
50 Cent just... So when Jim Jones claimed that he made Nas go viral, and that Nas was only talked about because of him, it felt like pure disrespect. Jim's argument wasn't based on music or legacy.
If I told you I was in the Roc Nation office, how would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying? That's clear enough for you?
It was based on hype, and 50 Cent wasn't having any of it. What made 50's response hit harder was that he didn't just criticize Jim's statements about Nas. He pulled back the curtain on Jim's entire career, showing how Jim went from dissing Jay-Z to begging for a spot at Roc Nation. It's a story of contradictions of a man who once prided himself on being from the streets.
That's probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all, ever.
And what
certain people shouldn't be able to say your names until they've done something in the genre of music. I've done too much in this music to even have to answer that question. Like Jim Jones, who is Jim Jones?
Standing against corporate rap, only to later do a complete 180 when the money and opportunity aligned. Years ago, Jim Jones and his Dipset crew were loud about their feelings toward Jay-Z. Jim threw all kinds of shade, both in interviews and through music. He even got physical with someone from Jay's inner circle, slapping Jay's longtime A&R, Lenny Santiago, in a Louis Vuitton store.
Nah, I don't care what nobody say. I know I made a little boo-boo when you talk about the sales and all this type. I don't feel like getting into that rhetoric about where I started and where he started.
You said that.
But listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school. When I was in 10th grade, Nas came out. Nas was dope. We appreciated him. He had a little bit run. But Nas always came up second to Jay and DMX and all these other people.
But lyrically, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you.
Yeah,
y'all
but look how
ain't
you
with
dress.
Nas.
Look how you dress. You don't even be in the same places I be in. Listen,
I can be in the church house. You can't F with Nas lyrics. I don't know who told you that. Now look, I know you on that good stuff, but you're not seeing Nas. You're not seeing Nas, bro. Let's be real.
You got a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds in their panties because I said I'm better than Nas.
It don't matter.
Look at you.
Hey,
I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now. Right now, I will run Saturn around Nas right now rapping. Everybody knows.
That moment wasn't just a beef, it was personal. But what happened years later? Jim Jones signed with Roc Nation, posted up pictures of their office, and started attending the same Roc Nation brunches he used to clown. 50 Cent highlighted this switch up with an old video clip of Jim in the Roc Nation office acting excited and happy to be there. The clip was accompanied by a caption where 50 mocked Jim's lack of consistency. And it's hard to argue with 50's point. Jim spent over a decade disrespecting Jay-Z.
Ever, he's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Now, has Nas
you did the last time he was in some this what people were comparing when him and Jay was beating on him.
Only to eventually sign under him. That's not loyalty, that's opportunism. The situation becomes even more complicated when you consider the timeline. Back in the early 2000s, Cameron and Jim Jones were brought into Rockefeller by Dame Dash. Cam was even promised a vice president role. But Jay-Z never confirmed it when tensions rose. Jay recorded a remix of Cam and Juelz Santana's hit, Oh Boy, but Cam refused to release it, especially after Jay's verse dissed Nas. Cam erased the verse, and that was the start of a long Cold War. Jim Jones used that friction as fuel. He went on a campaign to paint Jay-Z as soft, out of touch. And to corporate, he claimed that Dipset was the voice of the streets. The real energy of New York and too many fans, it felt authentic. Jim and Cam represented Harlem. They were flashy, aggressive, and raw. But things started to shift when Jay-Z became more powerful, launching Roc Nation, signing big-name artists, and expanding into sports and tech. When Jim released We Fly High and made the phrase ballad a cultural phenomenon, he had a moment. Jay-Z responded with a remix called Brooklyn High, mocking Jim's lyrics and style. It was a lyrical chess move. Jay didn't raise his voice, but the message was clear. Jim wasn't on his level. Jim fired back with another diss, and the two kept going back and forth. Then came the real-world tension. In 2008, Jim got arrested for assaulting Lenny Santiago. It was a clear escalation, no longer just diss tracks, this was physical, real-life beef. But even after all that, Jim made the decision to join Roc Nation. In 2017, after 13 years of rivalry, he signed on the dotted line. And it wasn't subtle, he posted about it, bragged about attending the Roc Nation brunch, and praised Jay-Z as a mentor. This is what 50 Cent couldn't ignore. For someone who built a career on not bowing down, Jim seemed too eager to be part of the very world he once opposed. And after disrespecting Nas, a man who has never wavered from his values, it made Jim look even worse, because Nas doesn't chase trends. He doesn't flip sides. He stands firm in who he is. Jim, on the other hand, looked like someone willing to change his story depending on who's winning. And that's the problem. Hip-hop has always been about authenticity. You can evolve, but you can't betray your principles. Jim's actions sent the message that loyalty is negotiable if the price is right. 50's takedown of Jim wasn't just about one interview or one viral clip. It was a history lesson, a reminder of all the times Jim tried to position himself as the anti-Jay-Z, only to later align with him when it was convenient. And when Jim disrespected Nas, it gave 50 the perfect opening to remind fans of who Jim really is. The fallout from Jim's comments is still unfolding. Some fans have defended him, saying he's entitled to his opinion. Others believe he crossed a line by going after a legend like Nas. But what's clear is that Jim's attempt to elevate himself by dissing Nas has backfired. Instead of gaining respect, he's now being reminded of every move he's made, and not in a good way. As the backlash grows, it raises questions about where Jim goes from here. Will he double down on his statements? Will he try to clarify or backtrack? Or will he stay quiet and hope it all blows over? Whatever he decides, the damage has already been done. His credibility is under fire. And 50 Cent has made sure that fans won't forget. This moment is a lesson for anyone in the industry. Respect is earned, not bought. And trying to rewrite your history for clout will always come back to haunt you. Jim Jones might still have fans. He might still make music. But this controversy has exposed the cracks in his foundation. And in hip-hop, where authenticity is everything, that kind of exposure is hard to recover from. The story of Jim and Jay-Z is a long one, filled with ups and downs, loyalty and betrayal, pride and submission, and now with Nas caught in the middle, it's become a full-blown saga. But one thing is certain: when 50 Cent speaks, people listen. And his message was loud and clear. Jim Jones is not who he pretends to be. As the dust settles, it's up to fans to decide what to believe. But the receipts are there, the footage is out, and the narrative has shifted. Jim tried to elevate himself by tearing down a legend. Instead, he reminded everyone why he's never truly been considered one. In the end, loyalty matters. Respect matters, and in a culture built on truth, pretending to be something you're not will always be your downfall. Just ask Jim Jones. And what makes this even more ironic is how Jim Jones tried to justify his statements about Nas by pointing to today's social media buzz. He acted like being mentioned online more frequently than Nas somehow meant he was more influential. But the truth is, clout isn't the same as impact. Viral fame fades, cultural influence doesn't. Nas helped shape the DNA of hip-hop. He gave the game timeless music, profound lyrics, and a consistent commitment to excellence. Meanwhile, Jim has had hits, nobody can deny that. But when you weigh legacies, the difference becomes glaring. Nas has inspired generations of rappers, Jim hasn't. Nas has classic albums that are still studied, Jim doesn't. And that's what made his comments so outlandish. It wasn't just that he claimed to be better, it's that he dismissed Nas's decades of work like it meant nothing. That kind of arrogance is what 50 Cent couldn't let slide. Because 50 understands legacy. He may be a businessman now, but he came up through the same system of respect, grind, and authenticity. When someone like Jim tries to shortcut that by undermining a legend, it threatens the very foundation of hip-hop's values, and 50 wasn't going to let that go unchecked. As this drama unfolds, it's worth watching how other artists react. Will more voices call out Jim for his disrespect? Will anyone step in to defend him publicly? So far, most of the commentary has been critical, and with someone as influential as 50 leading the charge, it's likely that more people will feel emboldened to speak up. This is bigger than one diss. It's about holding people accountable for what they say and how they move. In the end, this might be remembered as a moment where Jim Jones learned that you can't build yourself up by tearing others down, not when the receipts are this clear, not when the culture remembers. Time will tell what Jim does next, but no matter what, the message has been sent loud and clear. Some lines you don't cross, and some names you don't disrespect.